So Be'ez Hashem will continue. Actually, Be'ez Hashem, what we'll try to do is to complete Perek Aleph. To finish Perek Aleph, the first chapter in Sefer Yetzirah. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. We learned it quickly, but we'll just do a sikkum and just go through the last mission again. Yud Gimel. Yud Aleph. So just to complete this thing that we started last time, that we're talking about that is oimek roim and oimek stachas, and oimek toiv and oimek ra. When it talks about the different 10 spheres, so it says that these are the 10 depths. One is the depth of toiv, one is the depth of ra. One is the depth of good, one is the depth of the opposite of good. And then it started speaking about the ruach and mayim ruach and then toiv v'voyu. We're talking about the Tan and Agadol. So when we're speaking about the Tan and Agadol, about this great serpent and Leviathan, what it's trying to tell us is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, that Hashem created this thing. And that's a chiddush. That's a chiddush not for us, but it's a chiddush for the way people think, is because you would think, or you could think, we say this every day in davening, we say, Yetzirah v'Oyer Choshech, Oisa Shalom v'Eretz HaKol, right? So Yetzirah v'Oyer Choshech, that's the pasuk. That's the way we say it. Yetzirah v'Oyer Choshech. Hashem created Oyer Choshech, light and darkness. V'Eretz HaKol, and created everything. But the pasuk in Yeshayahu says V'Oyer Ra, and created Ra. That is a V'Oyer Oyer and V'Oyer Choshech and Oisa Shalom v'Oyer Ra. That the creation of Ra, which we have to understand what this means, which the Sefer Yetzirah is actually saying this, that there's a V'Oyer of Ra, that Ra, that whatever Ra means, let's say evil or negativity or bad, is not, there's no two forces, Chalila, that there is, which was a very dominant idea if you lived in Zman HaShas, and if you lived in times of Gemara, because that was the Hormiz, and I don't know if the Gemara uses this language, which is that there was an idea of like light and darkness, like which is Zoroastrian. I don't know if you know what it is, it's not relevant. But that was a very big Avodah Zarah at that time. So we're saying is that you should know that the Choshech, the darkness, or the Ra, is also created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this thing. That the Leviathan, these are things that are created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This force. So it's not like a battle and then one force overwins light, the force of light overwins the force of darkness. But the forces of darkness, whatever these forces of darkness are actually inherently created by the Creator. Put it within the system of creation. That within the system of creation, there's a oyer and there's a choshech. There's something that's order and structure, which we'll see soon, and something is the opposite of that. These things also represent these ideas of these mythical or exaggerated, these big animals, whatever, these Shayra Bar, Leviathan, all these ideas, they also represent parts of our own subconscious, like internally. There's a part of ourselves that's very clear and very orderly and structured, which he says, like which the world of Tikkun, which is order and structure and rational. And through rationality, through Seichel, through Moichin, we can actually make sense of our life. And then there's a part of us that's not only just because of immature state, because we move from immaturity to maturity, but there's still some part of ourselves that's actually has like a undefined, wild, untamed part of self that's not structured and ordered. And the idea is what Chazal explained, and this is what the Torah, this is what we had in the Psukim in Iyov, and the Psukim in Tehillim, and the Psukim in Yeshayahu. That what the Torah is telling us is that Asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lasa Sudah L'Sadikim from Leviathan, that idea that there'll be a Sudah, there'll be a meal. What is this actually trying to say? It's trying to say is that ultimately there's going to be a full integration. So that means that it's going to protect, you're going to receive it. It means that there's going to be a full integration of this koyach, of this power in this world, that you'll realize Hashem echad is ataka echad, that there's no other force. There's only one, and that's the way it's marked. Same also when the Gemara says over there that that some people say this in the Yetzirah on Sukkos, that you should say that also Kadosh Baruch Hu lasem or shalav that'll make sukkahs for sukkah tzadikim from the or shalav from the skin of the leviyasim. So this is the same idea that it becomes usable. It becomes something that becomes part of our experiences. If you look before, which is interesting, the lashon. I don't know if you want to give him a medayik in this, but if you can catch a little bit, because be a little creative. Sacham kamin ma'aziva, when it talks about shalosh v'mayim meruach and Mishnah Yud Aleph, the thing when it says chakakam, which is the language it's always using, engraved, it's even carved, kamin choyma, and then it says v'sacham kamin ma'aziva. That sachacham is like he weaved, but actually something connected with the sukkah, tzchach, which is Olam HaMalbush also. So something connected with this idea. Just a derech hagav, I know this sounds like but it's actually some of the poskim, some of the Mefarshat al Gemara asked the Shaila, the Rachel Ner, the Mashal, when he said that the Orish of Yasin is going to be used to a sukkah, how are you allowed to make a sukkah from skin? It's not the Davim Gedulim in Aretz, so how can you make a sukkah? Gedulim in Karka. So you can't do it. Rashi writes in the Sukkah, if you can't do it with Or. So there's a Meiri that says, on the Gemara Yud Aleph, the Meiri says that you could use oil of a behema. And the Balaitor writes that the reason why you can use oil of a behema, the skin of a behema, is because since is yonik min karka, it eats from the karka, so therefore you can use it's considered dual min karka. It's also considered from the earth. But then the problem is still the dogim. Dogim is not min karka, so you're back to square one. You do a dogim. So the simple answer for this is that the Gemara is not talking about a sukkah. Who said the Gemara is talking about a sukkah like a sukkah, a mitzvah sukkah? Because later the Gemara says, Vim loy zacha nasal tziltzol, Vim loy zacha nasal anak. It becomes like a lace or something, other thing. That means if you get your zoicha, you get the sukkah, which is like a bigger piece. If not, you get a smaller piece. Lav dafik sukkah. But let's say it is a sukkah, so like this. So there's a medrash, the famous medrash that speaks about Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Lasa the Kenigid. It'll be like a war between the Medrash of Yikar Abba speaks about this war, this battle between Levios and Sharabar, and the Medrash says that the Sharabar will be nishchat through the sampirov, through like the scales of the fins of the fish, and the horns of the behema will rip open the fish. So the Medrash asks the Shaila. The Mishnah says in Chulin Nakol Sheichim Nakol Sheichim, but it has to be b'magal. You're not allowed to cut with like a machete or something. So what does Chazal say? Torah Chadash Mitateitze. So Torah Chadash Mitateitze means a new Torah will come. Now what is new Torah Chadash Mitateitze? Torah Chadash Mitateitze means that means battle of mitzvahs. That doesn't mean that because the Torah is loyti machlefes. So what is Torah Chadash Mitateitze? Torah Chadash Mitateitze means that there'll be a Rosh Shah. It'll be like a special situation. So this will be her Rosh Shah. So Rosh Shah, then you can say maybe the oil of the behemoth, can also oil of the dog can also be for a real sukkah. On Shabbos, I saw from some Sefer something this week's parsha, some mincha, and he writes. It's all shaila about. If a teku is a davar shesh l'matirim, something in Chazal say that we don't know what the halach is, so is that considered davar shesh l'matirim? Because if it's a davar shesh l'matirim, it means teku it means that eventually it could be mutter, so then it should not be able in this bottle. It shouldn't be nullified because davar shesh l'matirim is not in the bottle. So he says with regards to teku, it's not a shaila because teku is just revealing what the halach is. Either it's revealing the halach that it's mutter, so then they don't have a problem, or it's revealing the halach that it's aser. It's not a matir. It's not a new heter that's coming. It's not like chametz and Pesach lachar Pesach. It's not davar shalom like after Pesach it's mutter. It's something else. Then he says, but how about there's a famous Chazal which is not a Chazal, but people say it's Chazal, which is that Chazer is meloshin asan Chazali litar, right? The chazer means to return. So, lachzor, so it comes from the word return. So people say it's a common statement. There's no real mock in Chazal, but it's a statement that also chazer litar, that the chazer will become, pork will become kosher. So he says, so then it's davar shesh lamatirim. So it's davar shesh lamatirim because if also the chazer litar, so it shouldn't be bottled. There's a whole shuvah also with the Ramah. It's davar shesh, it's nice and tam gam because he says because it's so people are so mos, so it's maybe nice and tam gam. It's another shaila. But he says maybe you should davar shesh lamatirim. So some Sefer says no, it's not davar shesh lamatirim. It's not something that become eventually mutter. He says because pshat is what it means is that eventually the chazer will have a new type of. The reason why things are not malas gera, so first is parsa chazer, but it's not malas gera. It doesn't chew its cud because it has like a thick skin. Things that have thick skin don't have to chew their cud. I don't know. This is a state. So I'm not an animal vet. I can't tell you exactly how this works. But there's something about this. So he says what the teretz is, what the Chassam Sefer says is that also Chazal Torah is the Chazal will have a different type of nature. So it'll become not the Chazal the Torah will become kosher. It will eventually be malas ger. So it becomes malas ger. Why can it be kosher? So yeah. So it's not the same Chazal. It's not the same. It's a different Chazal.
It does say Chazal or Pasik though. That's a Chazir.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, but that's one type of chazad, but there's a new type of chazad. But the pasuk actually says, if this is parsha, right? The pasuk says because why? Because it's the first bias of learning malas ger. Okay, so if it's malas ger, it's no longer together with chazad.
There's a chazad in India that is malas.
That's malas ger.
Yeah.
Okay, no. So it's elam matukin. Oh, really? The son. Okay. Anyways.
Somebody.
Zimois Mashiach. Okay.
I have like from somebody who can't shout about
I don't know. Let's talk about I don't know this. Okay, this is a derech hagav. Okay, there's oimek ra and oimek toiv. I want to understand this a little bit better. Yetzirah oimek toiv and oimek ra. The basic difference in toiv and ra, because these are the two spheres, oimek toiv and oimek ra. That is the depth and depth which we explained. That idea of the depth means that it's ein soifius, right? It's oimek lefim oimek. It's just depth and complete deeper depths. That there's a oimek of toiv and there's a oimek of ra. What's the difference in toiv and ra? That toiv means something that reaches or is in shleimus, in completion, in wholeness. When Chazal say, some people learn this Gemara at the end of Tainus, especially the Tubav, that one of the things that happened is that that Haruga Beta were returned and they were buried. And because of that, there was established the bracha of Toiv Meitav, right? The third bracha, fourth bracha of Birchas Hamazon. It's because of Toiv Meitav. What's that Toiv? Toiv is that they're found complete. Of a Meitav that they returned, they were able to be buried. So what does that Toiv mean? Toiv doesn't mean, we say the word good. It's sort of like an ethical or like a certain type of sensation of what good means. Good means when something is in its correct space. It's shleimus. It reaches its shleimus. The toiv and the meitav, it reaches like a tovas haneres. You're preparing something to be in its correct state. That's toiv. What's ra? Ra means something that's ru'ua. It's broken. It's not yet. It's shvir. There's a shvir. There's a brokenness. It hasn't yet reached its shleimus. In the bria itself, this is what Sefer Yetzirah is saying, and all Sefer Soid are saying. The bria itself, there are two forces in the bria. One force in the bria, one force in the creation is, it goes back to the question of is tzimtzum kipshutai or like kipshutai? So if you'll say there's a tzimtzum, what does tzimtzum say? Tzimtzum says, what does tzimtzum say? The idea of tzimtzum, the contraction of the infinite light, of the Ein Sof, is saying that there's a rupture, there's a separation, there's a brokenness inherent within the creation. There's the shleimus of the Metzias Elikos, of the Creator, and the bria. It was created and founded. The Metzias of the Bria, the existence of the Bria, is based on an absence. That the absence is what creates the Bria. So inherent within creation is something that is ishlemus. Inherent within creation is the sense that things are not complete, things are not in the right order, things are not in the right structure. It's not yet reached its perfection. This is the idea of the tzimtzum. The understanding of tzimtzum is like pshuta, that the tzimtzum is not literal, says almost the opposite. That what you think is that there's an absence of something, you should know that that absence is actually fullness. right? So it's almost like saying, let's say it a little differently. If I say there's no tzimtzum, forget the word tzimtzum. I'm not going to use the word tzimtzum. I don't say there's no tzimtzum. And if I use the image of, let's say, ilav Allah, cause and effect, which is the way a lot of the Rishonim speak about creation, which is that one causes the other, like one is the cause of the causality of the other, then the fullness of that is revealed, the fullness of the ilah is revealed in the Allah, which means that it's just a matter of, I don't see the fullness. Let's say you throw a ball, right? So the koyach to throw the ball exists within the ball all the time. The ilah is affecting the Allah, and that's it's constantly in there. If you don't observe it, that's because you're not understanding what's happening now. But the truth is that the fullness of the Creator, the fullness of Elikus, is actually fully in the Bria. Once I say that the world is created through a tzimtzum, then what I'm actually saying is that it's creating through a rupture. It's creating through something that's separate. There's some type of physics, there's some type of separation between the Ein Sof and the Bria. So when I feel in this creation that there's something amiss, or I feel in my own life, and I'm feeling, things work out and then they don't work out, and I feel like I'm always desiring for more, and I feel incomplete, and I feel something is not right in my life, you should know that this existential, whatever this feeling that you have, is part of the Bria in itself. The Bria in itself inherently has the tzimtzum within it. There's like the trauma, I don't want to use those words, but the trauma of existence is because we are created in a world of Hela. We're created in a world of tzimtzum where there's a contraction of the infinite light. We don't experience the infinite light. On the other hand, when we say that tzimtzum is lav kipshutai, we're saying that the tzimtzum is lav kipshutai means that it's not true. That really everything is right here, always. And the likus is here. But it's actually much more dakas here. Because to use the language of Sefer Yetzirah, it's saying that there's a oimek toiv and there's a oimek ra. Exactly. What we're saying is, we're not saying, if I say Elikus is everywhere, right? Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is everything and everywhere in every place. There's no tzimtzum, there's nothing. That means that the world is created in a state of completion. And everything inherently is in a state of completion and perfection. In this world of perfection, if I'm not feeling perfect, I would say the reason why I'm not feeling perfect is because something's wrong with me. Because really I should feel perfection. Because perfection and wholeness is the true reality of existence. That's if there's no tzimtzum. If I say the tzimtzum, then if I feel emptiness and I feel lack and I feel absence, and I feel like I'm missing something's not correct, and I say what's wrong? That's not wrong. That's the reality of existence. That there is a tzimtzum. Then I say tzimtzum shaloi kipshutei. What am I undoing when I say tzimtzum shaloi kipshutei? When I tzimtzum is not like, I'm not undoing the tzimtzum. I'm actually saying that they're both true. There's a tzimtzum and it's like kipshutei. You understand? That's what it's saying. It's not saying that there's no tzimtzum.
Embracing
I'm not embracing it, right? If I say there's no tzimtzum, meaning there's only fullness, there's only a likus. Okay, we'll call it mitzidoi, whatever how you want to call it. There's only yichud ilah. Okay, so if I'm not feeling it, something's wrong with me. If I say there's zes tzimtzum, so if I'm feeling absence, that's my truth. If I'm saying tzimtzum like pshutei, what is the sensation that what am I supposed to be feeling? Is that I'm supposed to be feeling, and I don't have to explain to you what you're feeling. I'm saying what the feeling is, what people have, is that there's two things that are infinitely true. And no matter how deep you get, you're always going to get to the same point, which is you're infinitely whole and infinitely incomplete at the same time. Both true simultaneously. There's an infinite amount of awareness and depth that every time you get to a higher level of shleimus, a higher level of completion or sense of completion, you recognize that you're still incomplete, and then you want to get even more complete, but there's still a sensation that you are complete. And there's an infinite amount of feeling of absence that when you think I got it to the bottom of the barrel, like this is the first that I can feel absence, something else happens and I feel even worse. Because there's an oimek toiv and an oimek ra inherent within the creation itself. The Kadosh Baruch Hu created the depth of the oimek toiv and the oimek ra simultaneously to exist in this world. There's a tzimtzum and it's like a pshutah. That's the experience of that, and that's why we'll say that in the oimek of toiv, it is ashlama. The oimek of toiv is ashlama. In the oimek of ra, in the oimek of absence, there's always movement. There's always she'ifas, there's always desire for more, right? Because that's what it means, ra. It's ra'ua, it's broken, I'm trying to get the bigger sense of completion. Will we ever reach, I don't know, we'll ever reach a point where there is no ra period? Now, on one hand, classically we'll say, this, of course. So that's, but yet the Gemara actually says that tzaddikim ein lem menucha, loy b'olam haza, loy b'olam haba, which is very paradoxical, because when you say tzaddikim ein lem yechem l'chai l'chol yir el tzim l'kim etzion, that tzaddikim ein lem menucha, there's no rest for the tzaddikim, not b'olam haza, which makes sense, because that's a place of lack, that's a place of absence. So I'm constantly desiring more. But then it says loy b'olam haba. Olam haba, that's supposed to be the place of fullness. So what does it mean that I reach in olam haba, which is the place of fullness, which seems to be the tachlis? How do I still have the she'ifas? How do I still have that there's still no menucha?
It's not destination.
So what is it?
It's Olam Haba.
So-
It's Haba. It's Haba. It's Haba.
Okay, that's a little, you know what I'm talking about. That's it's a shtickle kvira. I'm not mamish going to argue with you, but you know what I'm saying. You know where it comes from.
What?
It's from an Israeli chacham. Okay, whatever. It's not again.
Yeah.
That the olam haba is always. Yeah, no, I don't want to say that. There is, Taka the Nefesh HaChaim writes that you say Kol Yisrael Yesh L'Chelek Le'olam Haba. Grammatically, it's incorrect. You say Kol Yisrael Yesh L'Chelek Be'olam Haba. I say every person has a portion to New York City. It doesn't make it in New York City. Well, so he says Le'olam Haba is actually the becoming. Olam Haba is the constantly state of becoming. Okay, fine. But that we also believe that it's some destination. What's the destination of the becoming that's still in the state of becoming? So the answer is that when we say that Chad Chroiv, that the Gemara says, the Gemara says that eventually this, in the seventh generation is Shisht al-Tfir, and then the seventh one is Chat Chruv. And that, what's that? That's the absence. That's Yom Shekul Shabbos. That's Elef HaShvi. So is Elef HaShvi the end? Okay, Elef HaShvi is not the end. So Sefer Bris Menucha, in the Akdama, which I don't know if you know what Sefer Bris Menucha means, but Sefer Bris Menucha is a very interesting Sefer. It's one of the Sfarim that Arizal writes, that Reb Chaim Vital writes in the beginning of Priyat Chaim. It's one of the Sfarim that Ari was very dovuk in, and it's a Sefer that's mius, it's al pisoid, very, very hard Sefer. We actually don't know who, when it was written and who wrote it. We know that it appeared in the 1300s in Spain, and the reason why some people attribute to a Makubal named Avram ben Yitzchak Rimoin. Why is it called Rimoin? Rimoin is a pomegranate. Why is it called a pomegranate? Because he lived in Granada. Granada actually means, in Spanish, means a pomegranate. So Avram ben Rimoin, this is a Spanish Makubal, lived in the 1300s. He was Moitze La'or, he put it out. He was not the author. He also put out the Pirush on Sefer Yetzirah, the connection between Sefer Yetzirah and Moshe Batrio, what we have in this. He also put out that Sefer. He put it out together, and they thought that he was the author of this, but he's not. Who is the author? It's a mysterious author. We actually don't know. It's one of these songs we actually don't know. But it was miskabel by old Tfutzis Yisrael. Very dovuk. Yeah, correct. Baal Shem, the Gra, all the tzaddikim were very, very dovuk. The Ramchal wrote a pirush. Everyone wrote pirushim on this. The Ari wrote a pirush. Ramak wrote a pirush. It's a very, very oimid sefer. The famous Baal Shem that he brings down is Bakirvas Hatayva, Chachma. That's from Bris Menucha. There's a few other big Torahs he brings down, but it's a real serious sefer. Over there he writes it's Elefa Shmini and Elefa Chi, because the seven spheres, but then you have to do Gimel Rishaynos. You have to go to Chach Min Adas. So then you go to the next, and then the Elefa Siri, which means you think the time is ending, but it's not. And Elefa Siri, and when he writes about Elef HaSiri, I just looked it up today, he writes, V'iyaf shalahavin, v'iyaf shavladas, inyan zeh, something like that, Lashon, that we can't really have a comprehension of this Elef HaSiri. It has to do with Radla and Keser and Purim, it has to do with Layada. But that's the highest level. So this means that no matter how far you climb, Elam Menucha means, I don't know what that means, because we understand growth and desire. Desire for us comes from a place of lack, right? If I desire something, there's a famous Even Ezer. The Even Ezer writes in Shmois. Even Ezer says, "Why? How could be l'sachman? How could be the veil l'sachman? You shouldn't desire." How could you control your desire? You could say, lesigza, lesinuf. Okay, I understand. I control myself. What is l'sachmad? L'sachmad is an emotion. So the Evan Ezer has his svara because it's the mashal melech that if it's like out of your zip code you wouldn't have such shachmida. So the Michal Zlotcher writes in Malchus Bakodesh that it's really connected to Noach Hashem Lekecha, the Aleph, the first and the second. If you really believe in Noach Hashem Lekecha mamish, which means Hashem is your God, took you out of Mitzrayim, gave you what you need, exactly who you need, then you wouldn't have l'sachmod. So l'sachmod is an automatic of the idea. But what with l'sachmod, the idea of desire, really comes from a place of lack. I'm missing something, so I desire something. I long for it. When it says that tzaddikim elam menucha b'olam haba, which is a different paradigm, we're saying that there's to say it different, there's a oimik to the ra, which means the oimik means the ain't soifius. That's what we're saying, right? That there's a oimik, not ra as negative, not ra as bad, and not ra as evil, and not yitzhahara, not malacham. It's not that ra, but there's something broken. However we understand broken, if the she'if was to get closer to the ain't soif, then it's Ein Sofius. That's the definition. The definition means that it's Ein Sof. It's infinite, an infinite amount of growth to get to the place that it's infinite. So it's infinity. And no matter how much we have shleimus, there's always going to be something that's hidden and further. And that's what it's saying. So there's an oimik to the toiv, to the good, and then there's an oimik to the ra. And these are two inherent truths, and we have to hold these two truths very strongly, and know that they're true. Because if I feel lack, and I feel absence, and I feel that there's a rupture, I'm not connecting. Okay, that's fine, because that's part of who you are, and that's part of what you were created for, and part of the way we live is to have desire and longing and she'ifas and tzipitul Yeshua, and we desire, and that's what we long to overcome. And yet, we shouldn't get so stuck in the oimik ra, and the oimik of the brokenness that we have, which is inherent within the system and who we are. We should also recognize that there's the oimik toiv. There's the same thing. Also, there's an infinite amount of shleimus in us. So the shleimus that you reach one day, and the awareness that I have some type of shleimus in my life, is this one surah, one form of the shleimus I'm going to have tomorrow, and the shleimus I'm going to have tomorrow again. And if we can balance these two things, that's going to be a healthy attitude. What's that one, sorry? Yeah. Yeah.
To be cognizant and conscious of what you have of the kus of the heart.
Yes.
And to search deeper.
Yeah, correct. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's the word. But to know that they're both true. In other words, what I have is not an illusion. It's not false. It's true. I have shleimus within them. I'm feeling dveikus, and it's true. And even that's something. It's real. It's real in its fakeness, if you will. But that's real also. It's svas emes in the language of the Alter Rebbe. But it's an emes. It's a glimmer of truth. And then there's something that I don't have, and I have it and I don't have it, and I have it and I don't have it, and it's constantly moving. That's the oimik tov oimik ra. Now I just want to go into Mishnah Gimel, just try to understand a little bit something about this, the oisius that it talks about. Because we did this very quickly, but it talked about the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. Talked about these three oisius. And in order to seal, so we have this movable, everything is coming from Ruach, everything is arising from this Ruach, which is wind, and it's intangible. And then the Ruach is Meruach, and Mayim Meruach, and Eish Meruach, but everything is coming originally from Ruach. So this very fluid, I don't know what the right word is, but very malleable, very not solidified, not solid. No solid grounding. What creates the solid grounding? What creates that the world is, as dugris, it's like it's real, the realness of things, that things have a boundary and an order and a structure. What gives the world the havia? Just like there's the heder, there's the koyach of heder. We learned from Moshe Betriel when he said that was toyu. Toyu was the koyach of heder, the koyach of absence, which we say is amikra, right? The absence. And then there's the koyach of avia, which is the koyach of the existence, of sustaining existence, and what holds existence. So what he says is that this is through chasam roim bar b'shalosh kavim b'shma agala Yud-Hei vav. If you look at nusach hanachoina, some of them have it within the Sefer. It's the correct nusach is like this: Bir gimel oises min apshutas besoid gimel imois aleph mem shin. It could be on the bottom or somewhere on the side. Yeah, that's the girsa. That's the better gear size. I mean, I told you there's many gear size, but this is one of the gear size. That bir gimel oisim in apshutis b'soy gimel amas alashim. So it took the three letters, which is the aleph, the mem, and the shin, and v'kavim mishmay agadol v'chasm vav ksavis, and he was kavim these aleph, mem, shin in the letters Yud-Hei, vav. Look in the Ramban. The Ramban actually says this very clearly in the Pirush Ramban, where he says that the chasa Yud-Hei and the vav kalim b'chachma b'untun v'das, which he ties into the spheres. V'oisal connecting koyach aleph mem shin v'hem nikam tives. So and he does the same thing with all the oasis, which means the aleph mem shin are stand-in for the Yud-Hei vav-Hei. Yud. Oh, we don't know. I'm not going to explain that. Okay, so he doesn't explain, but that's the Yud and Hey and the vav is these letters that aleph mem shin, meaning there has some type of relationship. And the Havia is somehow connected to the Aleph Mem. We'll try to understand this. If you look at just very, very quickly into the Perek Beis, Mishnah Aleph, but I'm going to have to learn this more by ear, but let's very quick Mishnah Aleph. So he says, the Sefer Yetzirah writes, that there's the Shalosh Imas, Aleph Mem Shin. Yesodam is Kaf Schus, Kaf Choiva. It's the side of Schus, of merit. The side of Choiva, guilty or Choiv, like a Choiv means a debt maybe. Lashon Chak Machir b'neim, and then Lashon is Chak Machir. So these are the three things. And Reb Sadia Gaon, I don't want to. You can read it on your own, but Reb Sadia Gaon is going to talk about that there's different types of different types of people born with different types of temperature or temperaments, natures. So some people have more water, some people have more fire, and he'll say these are connected. The person has a stronger Yetzirah, a stronger Yetzirah. He brings down God. This is a very it's a story that got a lot of slack later on. He brings in. You see Reb Sadia Gaon? So he brings down the Maisa b'Munetza b'Ishachav v'Shmei Socrates. Socrates are Galilee. I don't know. There's another Socrates that live in the Galil, and that Socrates. He says she'hivim b'Sefer David hoy mafchem b'tzur sadam b'Maisav kishroi is the musros leidim ma'Maisav. V'Amar Socrates al ichach shu ganav v'riseich v'noev. Chazav sipol is tzadik mash amar alav. Ois tzadik vade hu chacham gadol b'ak b'tzur kesh l'torah gadol lachav v'seitzim zkaber lai moed moed. This is a famous story. This story is brought down not in the exact same form that someone came, saw the tzur of a certain tzaddik, said the tzaddik is a big annoying, a terrible person, and he came to the tzaddik, and the tzaddik said it's true because I have to overcome my tendencies. The Tiferes Yisrael brings down a Maisa. Exactly, Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a lot of people say this story is not emes, but the same thing. There was a Messiah that came into the Midbar. You familiar with the story? That he brings. Okay, fine. And that's the same thing because it says Moshe the Kavyutas that the Gemara says that he was maybe a Ganav, whatever he stole. So he said that Moshe says, yeah, it's true. This is my tzura. It was this, but it's a tzarachian. It's a very tzarachian story. But again, there's no real medrash for this. It's one of the stories that we say. Anyways, a kid said there's something about the Oisius. And okay, in
doesn't change, the Meissen change.
the Meissen change exactly. I'll say yeah. I'll say. If you look, if the next one in Mishnah Gimel, it says like this, that there's 5 locations for speech. The speech has 5 locations in the mouth, which is the Hemotzayas Hapeh, the 5 potentials of the mouth. These 5 potentials of the mouth are also connected to the Hey Gevuras, etc. And the Sefer Yetzirah writes that Aleph, Ches, Ayin, Hey they come from the throat, right? Oizigroinus. And then Vav, Beis, Vav, Mem, Pei, Saim. Then Gimel, Yud, Chav, Kuf is the Chech, is the palate. Dalet is the Nuntav. And the tongue. And Zayin, Shin, Reish, Sadik is the teeth. Okay. Shanayim. Okay. Now, in your version it says Aleph, Hey, Ches, Ayin, or Aleph, Ches, Ayin? Okay, so that's obviously wrong. In other words, in the Seder of Aleph Beis, yeah. Okay, so it's Aleph Hey Ches Ayin Beis Vav Mem Pei Vav Yud Chav Kuf. Right, so that's the way the order is. So if you look at the letters, so you have Imois, and then you have kfulas, and you have letters that are doubles. So the first pshuta letter is hey. From Aleph Ches, hey, I'm sorry, it's Aleph, hey. The hey, the second letter of the first group, from the garn, from the throat, is a hey. So Aleph is from the mois, the mothers. So hey is the first pashut letter. That's why you have, let's say, Nisan is hey. Later, right? It's hey, because hey is the pshutus. So hey is the first letter. In the second set, you have Beis and Veis, so that's kfulis, that's the letters that are doubles. Then Vav will be the first of the simple letters. Okay, and then Gimel Yud, Gimel is also Gimel and Gimel, which is a kfulis, and the first of the pshutas is Yud. So Yud will be the simple letter, and therefore the Yetzirah Malach, it says in Sefer Yetzirah Malach that the reason why these letters were chosen, Hey, Yud and Vav, the Hey, Vav, and Yud, these letters, because these are the three first pshutim levels of the groups. Okay, fine. That's one. Let's try to understand this. To understand a little what these letters are, Yud and the Hey and the Vav. Okay. So the Ramak writes in Shir Koima, the Ramak has a shaila. It's a very simple shaila. The shaila is like this: how come when you take the letters and you put them to numbers, Aleph is 1 and Taf is 400? L'chura, the Seich would say, if it's bigger, it should have more number. In other words, Taf, Aleph should be 1, Aleph should be 400, and Taf should be 1. The number should go down. In other words, if it's a bigger number, sounds bigger. Like you would think, as a bigger number, it's a bigger thing. So if the higher letter is the Aleph, so the letter should be, Aleph should be 400 and Taf should be 1. Why is it the reverse? Why do we come from 1 to 2? So the Ramak writes like this: Be'emes, in essence, there's only one. There's only no other. Okay. The first emergence is when the first emergence of a something is the first thing when it's the least of something. The least of something is actually the first emergence because it's emergence from nothing. It's the breakthrough. So the breakthrough is the least. The Aleph would be the number 1 because that's the lowest number. Therefore, and Taf would be the highest number because it's the furthest from the Oyer. The further you get, the more numbers it becomes. It all multiplies. The more it seems like separate from the Oyer. But the higher it is close to the Oyer, the less it's a number. Therefore, there's a Messiah. From the B'Shem Baal Shem, the Toldos brings it down. That the Toldos brings down that Beis is really 2 Alephs. And Gimel is 3 Alephs, which means that it's the Aleph that's multiplied. It's the one that's multiplied into 2, the 2 to 3, but it's always the one that's keeping being multiplied from the nothingness, really, but it's being multiplied into 400.
It's really like a negative number.
It's exactly. That we're going to get to that. So it's really, really Ein Sof, but it's just the multiplication of the one. This actually, Shama Mori Rashbi, the Arizal writes the same thing thus in the beginning, that the Gimel is 3 Alephs and Beis is 2 Alephs. In other words, it's always the multiplying of the same thing. Okay. So, the Yud-Hei Vav-Hei, down in the Sefer Me'en Chachma, which we'll learn soon in a second, is also brings us down from the Goyim. That Taf is 400 Alephs.
So that's 2 letters, under 2 letters.
Yeah, but it's the same surah that keeps on multiplying. Okay. So what does it help with Yud-Hei Vav-Hei? So Yud-Hei Vav-Hei, Yud, the Hey and the Vav. The Yud, the Hey and the Vav are the lowest numbers in the Milui. If you fill the letters Yud-Hei Vav-Hei, Yud and Hey and Vav, let's say you fill Aleph. It's Aleph Lam Pei, that's how you pronounce it. Aleph Lam Pei is 111. If you fill Beis, it's Beis Yud Tav, it's 412. The lowest numbers from all the Aleph Beis is Yud, which is 20. Yud Vav Dal is always spelled the same. Hey could be Hey Yud, Hey Vav, but as much as you get, it's always going to be a very small number. And the same thing also with Vav. Vav Vav or Vav Aleph or Vav Yud Vav, it's always going to be the smallest number, the lowest number. So what does it represent? It represents the lowest number. Okay. Let's go to Sefer HaBoyer. Sefer HaBoyer Sefer Bar is one of the earliest Svarim also. Sefer Bar, Sefer Yetzirah. These are all from the oldest Svarim that we have. This is come out almost 100 years before we knew about the Zohar. We had Sefer Bar. If you look at the Ramban, for example, in the Ramban al Torah, wherever the Ramban, most of the things that the Ramban quotes is from Sefer Bar. When he quotes things of Kabbalah, it's from Sefer Bar. It's not a big Sefer, but it's that time period. Okay. A tribute to the Mechunim and Akanim. Okay, my Nino Igula, that the Sefer Bar is going to talk about the Nekudas and the Oisius. So in Sefer Tikkuni HaZohar, in the Akdamus it says that the chilik between the Oisius and the Nekudas, between the words, the letters, and the vowels, is that the words themselves is like the guf, is the body, and the vowels are the nefesh. What does it mean that the vowels are the nefesh? The vowels, the nekudas, give animation to the words. If let's say you have three letters on a page without any vowels, you open the Torah, three vowels in the Torah. There's no nekudas. What does it mean? How do you read it? It's inanimate. There's no life. You put nekudas, it gives it animation, which means it gives it chayas. So the nekudas is the nefesh, is the chayas to the oisius. Without the oisius, it's the lashon of Baal Shem is oisius bli pirush. There's a Messiah gather that's brought down, and the Degel brings down that because the Torah was not written with nekudas, you can be doirish pshat, not according to the nekudas, right?
It's the most bearish. It's the most possibility, right?
It's most possibility because there's no thing. It's gather that's also brought down in Rishonim. And Menachem Tzioni from the Talmid Ramban brings the same idea. Other Rishonim bring the same idea, which means because there's no nekudas means that the Mishnah told us it's infinite amount of. It has to be one surah is the way it's presented there. Okay, but the nekuda, the point is that the nekuda is what gives it chayas. Okay, nekuda what gives it life. Yeah, correct. Correct. So, but it also gives a nice language. Is that it's also different between the eagle. Eagle means that it's a circle versus a square or a revuah. That the oisius, no, it's movement. It's a wheel. Look from Kuf Zayin. Chol nekuda igula v'chol asir revuah. That every nekuda is eagle, which means that it's a circle, which means that it's moving things. Kuf Zayin, and every ois is the revuah, is the square. What's that? Is square? Square means that it's a kav, it's a line, it's defined. But I don't know how to move this letter. It's stuck. It gives, let's say better. It's a measurement, right? It's Agbala, but I don't know how to move this Agbala because if it's kilo, it's almost like dead, but I have to give chayas. So the eagle, the circle, which is in the nekuda, gives the chayas. So let's go back. They're all circles. It's similar to the nefesh of a person, to the body, which means the body itself is dead. It's a line, but to give chayis, to move a person, like to roll or to move, you need a neshama. The less efshel, the means of kol echad, the less kaim begaveh. V'lo lemikad mir zuta severave, v'lo nishma pikavase. And the less efshel lemis zuta rabber lemisamer, v'lo nikuda. You can't say anything. You can't even say the words. Not a big thing, not a small thing. If you don't have language, if you don't have the kudus. So the kudus, what does the vowels do? The vowels gives the chayis. Okay. Then he gives a different example of this in Kuf Zayin, which is that it also represents the lines and the circle.
Why don't we write our Sefer Torah with this?
That's the whole point. Is because it's infinite. That's what we're saying. It's infinite amount.
So, what's it supposed to be?
We give the animation. The koyer is there's a Bach that the Bach writes about in Hilchos Sefer Torah that when the Sefer is writing the Sefer Torah, through reading it and here he's giving the chayis he's giving the he's giving the kedusha. The kedusha is to the person.
But the words in the Torah are inanimate as they're written on cloth.
Correct. And we're the animation. We're the chayis. We're the neshama of the Torah kaviyachol. Yeah, we give the chayis. We give the chayis. Yeah, of course. That's a Sefer. That's a Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah. We're holding up the Torah. We're saying that the chayis of the Torah is through us. We learn Torah.
That's why it's so important to pronounce.
Exactly those. Correct. Yeah. That's what the Balkar is a very important job, and to pronounce every word b'avara correctly. Correct. So this is the idea of the chayis. Okay. Says the Sefer. Okay. For some reason we didn't get in here. But in Shara Nikud, Rabbi Yosef Katalia writes that why was the Yud and the Hey, it's not in there for some reason, it didn't make it into the placket, look. So the why was the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. And the Mekubalim also, like Abalafi, also count the Aleph, which is another whole Torah. But let's say the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. Why are they the Shem Hashem? Why the name Hashem? Because the Yud, the Hey and the Vav are the Nekudis in the Aleph Beis. In the Torah itself, there's taken no Nekudis. But a Hu or a He, okay, we can do it differently. But if a Hu is a Vav, you can also say He, but if the Hu and the Vav, the way we're going to read it, is the Vav and the Aleph, and the Hey actually is the Nekudah. In Lashon Kodesh, you have letters themselves that serve both as a letter, but also as a Nekudah, also as a vowel. What are the vowels of the Torah? From the Chaf Beis Osis Torah, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav, and also the Aleph. Huh? The Hey is the Hey, like the Sophius. That makes sense. So that gives the vowel. So it says the Sefer in Rabbi Yosef Katalia that because, but the Baal Sha'ar, the author of the Sha'ar, says that's why the Yud Kei Vav Kei was chosen, because these are letters that shows the Chayas. Because what we're saying, that there's a Chayas, the life force that comes in the creation, the Haviyah, the Neshama of the universe. The soul of the universe is what? The soul of the universe is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Chayas, the life force that's giving life force into the creation. Okay, but it's a little bit different because, not a little different, we have to go a little bit more about it, because that's as giving Chayas. But we just learned 2 seconds ago from Sefer Boyer that there is the eagle and there's the kav, which means the eagle is the circle. The circle is what gives life. The kav actually gives structure. Kav actually gives boundaries. That's what a kav means. A kav means a line. I'm drawing a line. Here it is. Here it ends. When I have an eagle, when I put a circle on it, like I take a wagon, which is a rubua, and I put wheels on it, it moves, or a car, right? So what's moving it is actually the circle. So why Yud Kei Vav Kei are oisius of kavim? It's a klotz kasha. Why the oisius of kavim? A Yud is a kav, a Vav is obviously a kav of the kav, and a Hey is a kav. The Ches is a kav, and a Dalet is a kav, but a Hey,
Has to correlate.
it has to.
What the Tzura has to.
Avada has to. What do you mean? Who said? We're going to show how it correlates. It has to, and it has to explain exactly what we're trying to say. It has to. Oh, we're going to start with that. We're going to go. Yeah, correct. It all starts with the Yud, because we mentioned Bisol Sarug is that everything is the Mocha is the Yud, and the Yud is the drop. Okay, let's go. Right, let's go. Excellent. Let's go. Okay. Huh? No, Tagim is the lines. No. Okay, so let's go there. Yeah. So this is the Hagdama from Shlomo Lotzker. You mentioned it before. The Hagdama in Magid V'Lor Yaakov of the Magid and the Baal Shem of the Torah of Magid. There's Hagdama from Shlomo Lotzker, which is the Talmud of the Magid. And he writes about writing the Sefer, that he was very nervous to write the Sefer, but then he writes what the Baal Shem Tov, what the Baal Shem Kodesh learned with the Magid. What's the Sefer the Baal Shem Tov learned with the Magid? He became his Talmud. What do you learn with him? You learn with him Zohar? You learn with Kisveri? What do you learn with him? This is what he says. Told him how to speak to the birds and speak to the trees. He told him the secret of the names and how to do yichudim, do the unifications. Very important, the Sefer Mein Chachma, which you see later the Baal Shem actually quotes from the Sefer. The Kashas Magid wrote a Pirush on the Sefer. In Nei Yisrael is a Pirush in some of the part of the Sefer. Chamai Goin, a shtickle part of this. And it's a very deep Sefer about Oisius. The whole Sefer is about Oisius, which is Torah Baal Shem, about words. He also showed them the Sefer Ezil, the Ksav Malachim. What's these Oisius? That there's a different letter of Aleph Beis. And he taught him a different letter of Aleph Beis. What's the pshat, the different letter of Aleph Beis? If you look at the Aleph Beis, what we know about the Aleph Beis are. So we know a tzura of Aleph and a Beis and a Gimel, yeah? If it's Ksav Ivri, Ksav Ashuri, it's all Gemara in the beginning of Sanhedrin. Let's leave that aside.
What is Ksav Malach?
Oh, what's Ksav Malach? What is this? What's this? So I'm not going to tell you the full secret, right? I can't do that. I can't tell you the whole full secret. But I'll tell you half the secret. Half the secret is you open up the Yetzirah Malach, you can see. You don't have to be so just open the book. I know a lot of people have this school for a fire. You know, people have this. You have a Yetzirah Malach in your house. People have it for a fire, but you can also open it. It's not such a big avera to open it. Okay, fine. You got a bigger print. But you'll see that the Tzuras Oisius and the Tzuras Oisius are in Kavim. There's nothing circular. They're lines. They're very thin lines, and that's the Tzuras of Aleph Beis. They're in Kavim. And there's and Moshe David Valley in Sefer Likutim writes that there's something that's called Birur and Pirur, where you want to do a Takas Adin of things. I think I've spoken about this once. So if you take everything, you draw them back into their kavim, and then you draw back things into their nekudas. Which means, let's say you write the letter Ches. Ches is actually the most simple letter because Ches actually has 3 kavim. So the Ches, you take every letter, you make it into 3 kavim, three lines. Then you take that kav, you break it down into 3 parts, 3 nekudas, and then you rewrite it, the name. So let's say your name is Moshe, so you do 3 kavim. Then you do 3 with 3 points, which is like Pir, you're breaking apart the letter. Then you miyachad the letter again, you write it back in the correct order. So first you write them in 3 and 3. So the idea is that there's kavim, which means that there's the oisius, the way they exist in their very primordial form, is that they don't have shetach, they don't have volume, they don't have 3-dimensionality, they don't have expansion. There's a mimer from the Alter Rebbe. We can read this. It's not. I think it's something. Okay, we can read this quickly. There's Inyan Lashon Kodesh Tav Shashen Shul On Yochel Adaber K'Moshe B'Chol Oisik Didkeim. The Alter Rebbe writes in this mimer, a very interesting mimer. He writes, why is there some people they can say certain words, they don't speak it correctly. No one has shleimus oisius. No one has no one knows how to speak correctly. Sfardim speak a little bit correctly, Ashkenazim a little bit correctly, Yemenites a little correctly. Everyone has a little bit of the whole picture. No one has the full picture. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know if the Alter Rebbe wrote this or was heard, but it's very harsh language here. Kamoy gamal bal shem tov ariza lo yecholim kol lashon kodesh api diktuk b'shleimus. Im ken lechoyer moving shabal shem tov ariza yispal b'shib chas v'shalom. So if you say that they don't know shleimus lashon kodesh, you say a person, we say, I'll give an example. We say kol marich be'echad. The Gemara says kol marich be'echad merichim yom m'sharim. That whoever says echad long, you have a riches yom. If you're Ashkenazi, you can't do it. There's no way. It's abgehakt. It's finished. If you're Svardi, which is a Raf and a Kosher, which is the correct way of Daled, that is the Daled and the Zaled, then you can say Chod till you're Achiyas and Shmasa. So you can do this. Because we don't have it. And Ashkenazi even don't have it. So what's Pshat? How could you daven with the Shibush? So Achainu kilomayla him ein oisis gashmim. Ki moisis ruchen moed na'alim mislatim misleitzim kavasim mit filim nisat oisis lamayla v'kon mishleimus. Even kishabab is gal zaklish but losh zabel fi oisis gil lamayla v'klish v'yachalaz. In other words, Alter Rebbe is saying that when we talk about oisis, this is our very low level of expression of what's something much, much, much higher. So in our expression of the oisis, maybe we're not giving it out correctly. And he brings down Va'moifis Va'magid Shal Beis Yosef Sha'amul Pam Posach Echem Teichbar Shloike Seder Shenichtav Bevadel Lo Yitochen She Shabbos Hamagid Chas V'Shalom V'gam Beis Yosef B'Bakei Bal Peh B'Chol HaTorah Kula. So what's that? He quotes a pasuk. He quotes psukim because Allah even that's a mishubish. Something had to come down to this world. This is a very Torah of Hashem. Something had to come down to this world through these tzaddikim. They had to say a certain thing. You say the tzaddik said a pasuk, said a wrong, but tzaddik didn't do the kol Torah kula when he made a mistake in pasuk. That's what Abisha wanted. There was a certain type of gilui that had to come down because that gilui is l'maylam and oisius. Sometimes it's slavish and oisius. Sometimes it comes down to this letter. Sometimes it doesn't. So if there's a plitas apeh, a tzaddik, you should know that was also the kavanah. There was a kavanah of that oil to come down to this world with this plitas apeh. The point is that there's oisius on a higher madrega. What are these? What is this? So the Shlomo Imre Gabriel. But I just want to say in the Magid Misharim he brings down psakim La Halacha, I have to remember, Miketz, I think, he brings on psakim that he writes against. So he's saying it. So if you say it's talking about, but it came to the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef wrote it. La Halacha wrote this, and then he wrote La Halacha, and then when he spoke, Pshat, there had to be a certain gila that had to come down at that time. For that generation, they had to hear this.
Even the Baal Shem.
Yeah, even the Baal Shem had something had to come down, a new type of oil. Shema Isahui. You're right. Okay.
That's why that the oysters have to eat because it gets changed according to time.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
connected with also the Marisha and the calling of names, the animals.
Yeah,
So meaning that is it
Structure.
that he had some sort of
Chachma.
access to like language in an unfiltered sense, opposed to in this like
Correct. The Shalom Kodesh basically writes that he was able to see within the things exactly and to express it in a correct way. The Baal Shem talks about Shviras. We talked about this once. What the Ari calls Shviras HaKelim, the Baal Shem calls Shviras HaOisius, which means it's broken language. You don't have the right language to say things. We don't have the right correct expressions. There was one of the Rishonim, Rav Shlomo Gabriel Kesem Malchus, who wrote this famous poem. He was Nerag, he was killed. A very famous poet. One of the Rishonim writes like this in Kor Chaim, that the world emerged, again, we talked about in the beginning, through Tzimtzum, not through Tzimtzum, different ways of understanding, that the Etzem Nifredes L'Nekudus, and then Nekuda, you have to read his language, but the Nekuda then eventually became Kav Shel Shtei Nekudus, and then Adoim L'Misva Shnayim, Nachmas HaKav Bal Shtei Nekudus, Yiskabel Shetach Bal Abon Nekudus, which is like this. This is some of the Rishonim write this idea, that it is Nekuda Kav Shetach, that the way to understand creation, if you want to fit into Tzayis Hari post Tzimtzum, is that first there's an emergence of a Nekuda point, which really the Torah really says this, because Bereshis is Eser Shemayim, the lab is called Saveh. I mean, everything was created, or even Rashi brings it out, right? Everything was created in this Yechudius, in this one Nekuda in the beginning of time. And the Nekuda is a point. The point then becomes a kav, a line, and the kav then becomes shetach, which becomes three-dimensional. So there's an expansion from the Nekuda of kav to shetach. This Nekuda kav shetach is really in the Yud itself, because everything starts with the Yud. And the Rebbe Rashab in Samach Vav writes that the Yud, the milui of Yud is Yud Vav Dalet. So the filling of the letter Yud, when you spell out the letter Yud, is actually Nekuda kav shetach. Yud, the Vav is a kav, the Dalet is a shetach. But everything starts with the Yud. If you have the shtick from the Chesed Lavrom, that kvar nikar Yud, shememen niva kol olam chol oisis yichol lasis eis oisher oitzim. From the Yud, once you have the Nekuda, you can have anything. Because the Nekuda, you extend, every time you write a letter, you start from the Nekuda, you make it into the kap, but it's an extension of that thing. So what you're really doing is, it's the movement from the Yud to the Nekuda, from the point to the kav to the shatach.
What is it that you limitation?
What?
What is the key limitation in the sense that it's taking infinite possibility and then reducing it down to
Something correct. But now, what we want to do is actually the reverse. Because if the Nekuda Kav Shetach is, the Kuv Kav Shetach is, another way of saying Nekuda Kav Shetach is actually Yud, Vav, and Hey. That's the Nekuda Kav Shetach. It's a Dalet and a Vav. That's what it is. That's exactly that's a Hey. Right. It's a Dalet. It's a Dalet and a Vav. Because how you fill out how's a Hey? Hey is with a Yud or a Vav. But let's say it's a Vav. Why exactly it's three? So there's a whole idea, because it's really it's machshava dibur ma'isa, and machshava and dibur are davuk to each other. So that's two, and the ma'isa is already action is already separate from it. That's why koirach, that was poilag of Moshe, is kuf reish ches. It's all similar to the letters hey, but either there's a kuf, which means the ma'isa goes two down, or the reish means there's no ma'isa, or the ches means the ma'isa is connected to machshava dibur. There's no Torah from the Lubavitch Rebbe. But the idea of the hey is that it's machshava dibur, and the ma'isa is actually separate from it. Okay, so this is the idea of Nekuda Kav Shetach. So let's go to Boivik. What you're saying is that the Yud and the Hey and the Vav, which creates the seal and the boundaries to creation, is the structure. Because the Yud, the Vav, the Nakud and the Kav is actually the boundaries. That's the boundary. Let's go back. The Sefer board, the eagle is what moves things. The Yud and the Hey and the Vav are the ones that solidify things, concretize things. It says that this is the spashness now of the creation now stops here. Right? That's the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. That's the spashness in all the directions. Now the Yud, the Hey and the Vav, if it's the Nakud Kav Shetach, it's also the Haviyah, which is the Haviyah of the Kiyam Olam, but the Haviyah is Ein Sofius. So where do you see within the Nakuda Kav Shetach in itself, where do you see Ein Sof? Like, to use it a little direction. You say the Yud is the Nakuda, the point where everything comes from. So you take the Yud, you mamshech, you draw it further, it becomes Vav. You mamshech it further, it becomes Shetach, it becomes Dal, it becomes a Hey. Okay, fine, I get the Shetach. But what we're saying is that this Yud and Hey and Vav that's holding creation and creating the space is also, you can actually go fakert, you can actually go from the Shetach to the Kav to the Nakuda, right? Where do you see this? It's a halacha. It's a halacha in the Rambam. So it's a halacha in the Rambam? Yeah, it's a halacha in the Rambam. Let's see. It's a halacha in the Rambam. The Rambam writes like this. It's a machlokes the Rav and the Rambam that it's a little hard to read here, but let's okay. You know, Tuti Mechta Shiur means? You know what Tuti Mechta Shiur means, yeah? Tuti Mechta Shiur means that when something is an Avodah Zarah, something that's aser, doesn't have a shear. Okay. So the Rambam holds like this. That you're allowed to make a lechi. So lechi is a little pole that you hang by the door for a mavi, to carry. It's a sign. And so the Rambam holds B'chol Oisel L'chaim. There's a Chassidus word also, B'chol Oisel L'chaim. You can make a l'chaim with anything. B'chol Oisel L'chaim, you're allowed to make a lechi with everything. So he says, "Afilu b'yisana adam kol mazolas atzma oya sheir she'asa is a lechi kosher." That even with you're allowed to make it a sheira, you're allowed to make it even with something that's an avodah zarah, a takrev is avodah zarah. You're allowed to make a lechi. Why? Sha'alechi oiv kolshu. Because the lechi, the oivi, the dent, the thickness, which is a shatach, there's no shear. Hold on. Goiva lechi in pachas masar tvachim. Rachav oiv kolshu. That means the goiva, the kav, the line of the lechi, how long it has to be 10 tvachim. But how thick and wide it has to be, the Rambam holds it doesn't have to be. Comes the Ravid and asks him, Kos the Ravid, Ima v'kolshu gavoya miyu tzarich shir. How could you say, how can the Rambam rule like this? If it says that the roichev doesn't have a shear, but the goiva has a shear, she gavoya yud ala, bein lechi ve'mekar, mutat mishum heker, ve'ika heker. So he says it's the reason, because it's only a heker. So, but he says, but if that's the reason, then it's chatutim mechashur. In other words, the Ravid says you can also do it, but because it's only a hacker, so you can use it. But so it doesn't really need a shear. But the Rambam says that the reason it doesn't need a shear is because it doesn't need a measurement, because it doesn't need a measurement in its width, but it needs a measurement in its height. So if it needs a measurement of the height, so how could you do this? Chatutim mechashur. There's no shear of 10. That's the shaila. So the Maggid Mishnah has a teretz. The Maggid Mishnah writes like this. The Maggid Mishnah is from the Rishonim, Rabbi Dal Taluzu. One of the Rishonim, one of the Spanish, and we spoke before with the shir. The Spaniards knew a lot of, philosophy and things like this. Look what he writes. In the thick lines. The thickest lines of the Maggid Mishnah. He says, Amar Avram, in the second line, okay, so he says like this. This is the Maggid Mishnah. When we say the question of the Ravid's question that you still need the shear to Gaiva, so you need a shear. So how can you do the shear? So there's no shear. Atir is that sheyesh nekudus v'kavim v'shtochim v'chol zeh l'koach b'dimyon v'emetzias b'poyel. The nekuda, it's not actually real, but in b'dimyon, in our imagination, the way we understand, v'emetzias b'poyel nekuda ela b'kav. Nekuda doesn't have existence only already with kav. V'akav lo yimtza ela b'shetach. V'ashetach lo yimtza ela b'goylam. In other words, everything starts from the Kuda. The Kuda comes to the Kav comes to the Shetach comes to the Goyim. Everything originates from the Kuda. Here's look what he says. Lefikach. Kol ma sheyitzarech l'rechok of shir kikoyer v'shoifer yetzba ein eisem masher. Fishik b'kutu l'mech shir. Anything that needs width, that's already Shetach, volume, that you can't do it. If it's Asher, there's no shir. However, v'chol ma she'ein tzarech rechok of shir elo l'orche b'vad. If something only you need for the oira for the length, which is the kav, harei kikavim. The kav is like the mekal. The kuda doesn't exist. So you're asked the question. You didn't ask the question. You mentioned before that just like from the nekuda to the kav to the shetach means that everything is ein soif. This Magen Mishnah is saying that you can go reverse. If from every shetach you can go to the kav. You go back to the kav, or at least from every kav you can go back to the nekudas, which means the panimius. What he's trying to say is that even though the world is the haviyah of the creation is structured, and the Yud-Hei Vavke are these very kavim oisius, boundaries and structure and order, and it's giving location and space and saying this exists here and this exists here, and the right is the light and the left is the left, and there's no right that mixes with the left. Yet you should know that the emes, the oimik of everything, it's all one, because there's no share. It goes back to the Nekud goes back to Ein Sof. That's the word. So this is why Yud-Hei Vavke, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. Now let's dive quickly into the Aleph Mem Shin. So the Aleph Mem Shin, because he says that Gimel Oisim Rapshutis has the Aleph Mem Shin. So what's the Aleph Mem Shin? So Aleph Mem Shin is Aver Mayim and Eish. Okay. So let's go like this. There's Biyud Nivra Olam Haba, Behei Nivra Olam Hazan. The Gemara says Menachos, right? So there's Olam Haba and Olam Hazan, which means the world of Yud, which is the world of Olam Haba, of, let's say we'll use it like no Tzimtzum, the perfection, the wholeness. This is the world of the Hay, which is the Avodah. Machshav Di Ramaisa, but that's the Avodah, that's the place of Avodah, that's the place of Bechira, that's the place of the Tzimtzum, that's the place of the absence, that's the place where we're trying to do something and be engaged. That's the Hay. So there's the Yud and the Hey. What's the Vav? The Vav is the Chibur between the Yud and the Hey. That's the Vav, is the Chibur, the connection between the Yud and the Hey. Okay. We learned before, but very quickly, that there's Kaf Schus and Kaf Choyva. What's Kaf Schus and Choyva? So there's the Eish. Eish is the Choyva. No, Eish is the no, it's verkehrt. It's like this. No, verkehrt. Kaf Schus is the Eish. Kaf Choyva is the Makom. The Lashon Chayk Machriya B'neim. Aleph Mem Shin is Eish Mayim. No, I'm sorry. Aver Mayim Eish. Aleph Mem Shin, right? Aver Mayim Eish. Now the Sefer goes the other direction. Shalish Imus is Aleph Mem Shin. So then it goes backwards. So Eish is the first one. Kaf Choyv is the Mayim. Lashon Chayk Machriya B'neim is the Aver. You follow? 3, then 3. Aleph Mem Shin. That's the way it's written. Aleph Mem Shin, which is Aver Mayim Eish. Which Eish is Kaf Schus, Mayim is Kaf Choyva, and Lashon Chayk Machriya B'neim is going to be the Aver. Because the Aver, the Aleph, is going to be the one that is Miyachid, the ear, which is going to, the Sefer is going to talk about. The Aver, the wind, is going to be the creating the Yichud between Eish and Mayim. So the difference between the fire and the water. Okay, it's not fire and water. Right and water is fire and water is like the right side and the left side. Okay. The Schus and Choyva is like this. Schus and Choyva means like this. So the Vav Yud, the Aleph is going to be the Vav, the Mem is going to be the Yud, and the Shin is going to be the Hey. There's different ways how to to understand it. This is what we're going to understand this way. What does this mean? This Schus and Choyva. Schus and Choyva means Schus means the place of where we can merit. Schus. Choyva means the Sefer is going to write that the Eish is serekas. It's screaming, which means it's the place of Bechira. The Mayim is a place of Dumia, of quietness. It's Doim. In the place of Doim, which Pshat Choyva means that it's a debt. It's a debt. It's not guilty. We're indebted. Indebted means that we are. There's no Bechira. There's only Yediyah. And the Aleph is the place where it's Machriya between Yediyah and Bechira. I'll try to explain this. Yud is Chachma, right? Yud is connected to Chachma. Yud is connected to Chachma. Chachma is the right column, which is connected to Mayim, which is Chesed. Chesed de Memes. Hey is Bina, connected to the world of Bina, which is Gvuras. It's connected to Shin Serekas. Eish, the fire. That's Gvura. The Vav, which is Tiferes, the middle column, is going to be connected to Aleph, which is Keser, which is the middle column. Right? So you have the right side, left side, and the middle column. It's holding the two sides together. These are the Aleph, Bad, Shin, which is Yud-Hei, Vav. What does this mean? There is the place of the Gila Milamayla. There's a place where there's a revelation from above, which is the Kol Moment Daka, which is the idea of that it's idea, it's perfect idea, it's perfect Ashkacha. And then there's a place of Bechira. And then there's a place where there's a yichud between Koyach HaBechira and Koyach HaYediyah. Koyach HaBechira and Yediyah. To try to explain this very quickly is like this. It says in Sefer Chassidus that, especially in Ishbitz and the Beis Yaakov, that I don't want to get it's a long conversation, but why? Forget it, I'm not going to do that. From the beginning of creation, in the beginning, when there's the echo of creation is stronger, or the echo of Matan Torah is stronger, there's Kaf Alem Hakigigas. Kaf Alem Hakigigas means not that it's an external force that's forcing you. When there's such a high revelation and such clarity, there is no choice. Choice is lost. Choice is lost. The Maral talks about it. So that the idea of Kaf Alem Hakigigas means that it was so overwhelming that there was no alternative. So in the earlier generations, in the Doris Shoinim, there was a closer echo of the sound of Matan Torah and the sound of the Bria, even the first 26 Doris of Chazir HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means that therefore there was more a revealing of Yediyah and less than the Bechira. That's why the story of the Bereshis, that's why the story of the Torah is so interesting to us, because it's less, they become archetypes, they become ideas, because they're people, they have their own, they have their own lives, they're individual people, but they also represent, because it's a Yediyah reality, it's more the revelation of the Yediyah. Kadosh Baruch Hu created this say that Im Adik Bnei Adam Shonim K'malachim. It's not only, it's Shonim K'malachim because Adam Bnei Adam, we have Bechira, they didn't have Bechira. There's K'malachim, there's no Bechira. Which means that the idea was that there was more a revealing of the Yediyah, of the Ratzon Hashem, of the will of Hashem. As we get further away from the echo of Matan Torah, it becomes more Bechira. Bechira becomes more clear. Okay? We have more choice. Not only do we have more choice, but we actually understand only today, in the last 100 years. If you didn't understand, you didn't understand, it doesn't matter. But the people that were worried about trying to understand how a person can have Bechira in a closed system, and a system that's absolute, and time and space are absolute, there is no, it's a closed system, there is no possibility, it's predetermined, everything it's in a loop. There's no possibility of free choice. The awareness of free choice, that we have free choice, that there's possibility of free choice because of quantum mechanics and uncertainty, whatever, that's not irrelevant. But the point is that the marshal that we have actually free choice is actually something that's revealed to this generation in the last 100 years, last while. So Bechir becomes stronger. Besides the fact that Bechir becomes stronger because the echo of Sidon becomes less, so therefore we're standing more on our own feet, so we're doing more Bechir. See if it's less Yediyah. That's the one hand. On the other hand, it actually also works in reverse. Because as we're getting closer to Mashiach, as we're getting closer to the end of time, there's also a Me'ein Olam Haba that's revealed from the future into the present. So the present is being affected by the past, pushed by the past, but pulled by the future. Being pulled by the future, it's being pulled to Hashem Echad, to back to square one, which is higher level here. Yom Shem L'Chefetz.
Gula energy.
So whatever you want to call it. The point is that we're being pulled to something that's higher.
It's a double continuum.
It's a double continuum. In other words, actually, at this time period, what we're actually doing is we're seeing, actually, observing a phenomenon where there's a higher revelation of the Yichud Hashem, higher revelation of the Achdas Hashem. We're experiencing nisim, miracles, that L'Sharim Avesenu, hundreds of years, people did not experience, collectively, Klal Yisrael did not experience such miracles that happened in the last very short time. We're not aware, we're not so conscious of it, but they're Moisim Gluyim to Klal Yisrael on a level that's unparalleled, that we didn't experience ever. I mean, since Yimei Tanakh. Klal Yisrael, as a collective. Individuals, yeah, but as a Klal. Millions of Yidden are being saved like this. So there's a revelation of which means because being closer, we're being pulled to the echo of Hashem Echad, which will be the Yichud of the Elikus. And the Yichud of Elikus, which means the revealing of the Achdas Hashem, simultaneously comes with a higher level of Bechira. Right? So on one hand there's more Bechira, and on one hand there's more Yediyah. This is going to be the place that's held this paradox is going to be the Vav is going to be the Chibur between these two ideas, between the Yediyah and the Bechira. And we are only privy, we're only Zoicha to experience this because we're entering into a time where there's the Gilui of Olam HaKeser and the world of that maintains paradox, that holds paradox, and reveal this everything we spoke about before about the Tzimtzum is like Pshuta and is Pshuta. There's a Tzimtzum and is like Pshuta, which is inherently in a paradox. As we're getting closer to the revelation of Hashem Ken After, that we come to the revelation of this thing, we're actually experiencing both this yichud of full bechira and full yediyah simultaneously. And they're total steer to each other. It's total contradiction to each other. But I call Sefer Ashus and Sunnah, like Rabbi Kiva says. That's actually the emes. How they work, we don't have to figure that out. That's no one. We don't know anything. We don't know how anything works. So why we know if it's a wave or particles? How should we figure out if it's yediyah and bechira? The point is that as is a gilui of a higher level of gilui, that's actually what's being revealed. All right, that's the gilui of Atzmos.
Like the curve, the end of the curve is close to the Or Sof, so there's a tremendous gilui at the end
Correct.
of the curve.
Correct, and it's still a kav.
Right.
In other words, it still remains a kav. So that's the same idea. That remains in the kud and the kav the shetach, and still always goes and loops back. It goes from the kud to the kav the shetach kuv the kav, but they're always remaining constantly within the same perimeter of actually being in existence and non-existence simultaneously. And that's, I think, the siyum of Perik Aleph of the Helikas Sefer Yetzirah.
Dat komt van de begin, not dan Hashrab is gezien bij
There's a shal of my. There's always has to be a that's my nukim, but there's always can be a gilu b'mayla. What's pshat? Like you see some time. Can you say some time I ran on the floor? Pshat is the klal yisrael already. Halal over the zara, halal over the zara. Maybe she can do some moifsim.
Bechira is getting stronger, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is coming from
Both.
right?
Yeah.
Just from you.
I don't know how it works.
It must come from the Bechira.
Also. We said that the Yiddah Kodesh, the reason why they call him the Yiddah Kodesh, they asked him once, why do they call it Yiddah Kodesh? He said, because every day I choose to become a Yid. Because I'm not a Yid because I was yesterday. Because most people are Yid. Why are you Yid? I don't know. I'm a Yid because I was yesterday. Well, every morning you wake up and say, oh, today Shaloi Asani. Yeah, okay, fine. You say, everyone says the bracha, I understand. But mamish like this, Shaloi Asani, that today I'm a Yid. And by the way, Shaloi Asani Goy means that it's just not a non-Yid. To be a Yid, you need Bechira. The Ebishik Shaloi Asani Goy, that's fine. Shaloi Asani Isha is fine. But that's not a gever. You want to be a man? Today, you don't say Shaloi Asani Isha. Okay, that's psanish. That's a psanish. I'm saying what our bracha is, you have to say, yeah, Shaloi Asani, I can say, Shaloi Asani Evid. I'm free. That's my Bechira. All right. We have a minion. We have a. You want a Davmar? You can have more, yeah.
Yeah.